right, we're going to go ahead and get started here for this 1:30 start of the presentation. Welcome to our session on building empathy through interactive fiction. This is regarding a game that is in progress at the Magic Spell Studios. And it's an interinstitutional project between RIT and the University of Rochester. It's part of a summer co-op. We have about, I think, 19 students working on the game. Josh is one of them. I believe we have another one here in the audience as well. This is Jai. He's also working on the game with us. This game is based on the work from Fulbright Scholar Marcia Hartwell, who has done significant amounts of research in the Kosovo region on peace building and empathy and stories. She has decided that the best way to get her message out to a wider audience and engage them more intensely is by creating a video game. Okay, so she's got this game in development. It's her concept, it's her idea, and we're attempting to help her execute it as best we can. My role on this game as part of the interinstitutional development, I'm with the University of Rochester. I'm faculty there. I'm serving as a consultant. My name is Kristana. Nice to meet you. Serving as a consultant and also as a person who is charged with developing undergraduate research. So that's where I come in. Sometimes that comes into play through independent studies. Sometimes that comes into play through experiential learning. Sometimes it comes into play with summer research. If anyone here wants to discuss the mechanisms of higher education and how to sneak informal learning into formal systems, or how to fund undergraduate research, please come find me later. I will be up at the Killer Queen cabinet at the 2:45 break. So if we have any Killer Queen fans out there, you know we need more people to play. So that's just a little plug for 2:45 Killer Queen. But that is not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about empathy and narrative and this game that is in development. As part of developing the undergraduate research, we are greatly in debt to the Schwartz family for funding Josh and his summer research project. We're very happy for them, so we thank them for giving us those funds. Josh started his quest with narrative and video games in my first year writing course at the University of Rochester, where we write about video games and play, and he first started with some real curiosities and questions about the Stanley Parable. So that's where it all started, right? As I'm sure you can imagine. So that was the spark that lit the fire to bring him into the fold as the narrative lead on this game. So we're trying to pull his research and elevate it a bit. It's been fantastic to watch. Like I said, it's still a game that's still in development, and I'm going to leave it to Marcia to give a little bit of background about the game and the context in the Balkans, and then we're going to turn it over to Josh to speak about the specifics of narrative and his experiences as the narrative lead.
Thank you. First of all, I want to give a shout out to another member of our co-op group, Tanessa, sitting over on the side, a very key member is helping us organize and keeping this going. This game really started with this mural, and this is an actual mural from Mostar, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and I showed it during the year I was a Fulbright Scholar in Kosovo, 22-23, teaching and researching peace building and technology with students. And to everyone who saw that, they understood immediately what we were talking about. They're talking about memories, how you see them, how you view them, how you interpret them as perceived history. So just very quickly, why a video game about memories? Digital storytelling is really gaining a lot of traction. It's a powerful peace-building tool to address the past. One of the biggest challenges in divisive histories and divisive ways of seeing events is building a shared narrative for our future. And are you going towards long-term peace, or are you going back to conflict? And right now in the Balkans and many other places that are 20 to 30 years out from a conflict, they're facing the same questions. So the idea of a video game is to make a player understand that their choices they make have consequences, both intended and unintended. And how they view others they may perceive as negatively can really shape their stories and their futures. The goal here is for the player to reach Peaceland, hopefully. So how do you get there? And it's never a smooth road. And that's what we hope to depict in this game are you have choices. You always have choices. They seem small, but they can have big outcomes. So this game is intended to be open access and is going to be shared with local peace-building organizations and peace builders. And we are in constant contact with the Balkans and particularly Kosovo populations as we do this. So I'm going to turn this over to Josh because he's really the driver behind the story and the world building. And we're at the very beginning, but we've made progress. So thank you.
Thank you both very much. Kristana, could you actually grab my water bottle? I totally forgot it. Thank you very much. Come on, there you go. Thank you, Marcia and Kristana. Thank you, Kristana, for that little Stanley Parable shout out. And thank you all so much for coming today. My name is Josh Stead-Dorval. I am a rising fourth year at the University of Rochester and the narrative lead on Peaceland, Choose Your Memory. If I can be selfish for a moment, it is so wildly cool to be up here today and to be speaking to all of you at a conference about something that I have loved my entire life, and to be sharing the first of my narrative design projects that I'm involved with, the first of what I hope is many. So thank you for being here today. We are here to talk about how we at Peaceland are using interactive fiction to build a game about empathy. And moreover, how we are considering empathy at every level of our game's construction. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit more about what Peaceland is. Throughout today, you're going to see some beautiful concept art from the artists on our team. So shout out to them if they happen to be watching over the Discord, and hello to everybody on the Discord as well. Peaceland is a synthesis, as Marcia and Kristana were saying, of research, observation, and lived experiences in countries 20 to 30 years after a conflict. It's a reflection on how the key role of memory plays, whether a country moves towards peace and prosperity or back towards conflict. The actual premise of the game as well, set in a completely fictitious world. You as the player play as a journalist from a neutral country, investigating what life is like in a country 30 years after a conflict. Your ultimate goal is to determine whether the country is moving closer towards Peaceland, or the ideal of a peaceful, prosperous, harmonious society, or back towards conflict. The journalist discovers memories. This is how the journalist comes to this conclusion. The journalist discovers memories from people on all sides of this conflict by interacting with the memory tree, as you can see here, a public art installation in a peace park in our primary city. The act of discovery transports the player from the perspective of the journalist into the memory itself. And now you are playing as the character to whom the memory belongs. While in this memory, you make choices, and the immediate and long-term consequences of those choices, are exactly how we demonstrate to the player whether this place is moving towards Peaceland or back towards conflict. We are still early in development, so up to about 100% of what I just said is absolutely subject to change. But the purpose of this presentation is not to present a completely finalized product. It's not why I'm showing you concept art. The purpose is to give a snapshot of where we are and talk about how we're using interactive fiction in this cool and interesting way. And as Marcia said, our ultimate goal is to give back, for this game to become a tool for peace-building organizations in the Balkans and hopefully around the world to be able to use in their efforts. So let's get into it. How is Peaceland using interactive fiction to build empathy? And we are all writers in this room, so I'm sure, as you know, when you start on a project where you're trying to emulate a place that already exists, or you're trying to handle sensitive material, the first thing you do is you look at your original inspiration. So we are sourcing our themes and memories from real lived experience in post-conflict zones. The big one that we're referencing is the city of Mitrovica in Kosovo, which is divided by the Ibar River and deeply segregated along those two sides. In the north of Mitrovica live ethnic Serbs. In the south of Mitrovica live ethnic Albanians. These two sides were former enemies in their conflict of 20 to 30 years ago. Connecting both of these sides of the river is a bridge. The EYEBEAM Bridge is pictured on the left here. And at different points in history, it has served as a coming together place. It has served as a place of communication and reconciliation. And at other points in the city's history, it has been an active war zone. This kind of place, this kind of tension, a symbol of connection, like a bridge that has such a diverse and complex past, is serving as the primary inspiration for our game's primary city, called Pax Terra. The Latin speakers in the audience will hopefully know why we chose that name. So you can see in the bottom right how we are paper prototyping. That's how early we are in process. How we're paper prototyping this city. What makes our game interesting is that at the center of this bridge, we've established a Peace Park. And in the Peace Park is this memory tree that I was talking about earlier, and it's a very important and crucial location in the game. To briefly talk about some other memories as well, all of this, by the way, is completely publicly available. So we highly encourage you to actually go check out some of these YouTube videos if you want to learn a little bit more about what it's like in Kosovo. The video on the right, growing up in Kosovo, I've never met a Serb. The story of two teens from North and South Mitrovica, one of whom has never met anybody from the other side, come together on the EYEBEAM Bridge, that bridge on the left there, and have a conversation. And the things that they immediately gravitate towards is how the memory of the war affected them. When one was born during the war and one was born after. Neither of them fought or really remember much about it, but the memory and how that memory lives on is the immediate thing they talk to. And they can't really agree on how they should deal with that memory, but what they do agree is that they have to move forward, and that the current tension is not something that is sustainable. And that kind of I don't want to say conflict, but that kind of collaboration, but still tension, and this story in particular, is serving as the inspiration for our first memory, which is about two kids in our city of Pax Terra who come together on a bridge to take care of a stray dog. More on the dog later, he's very cute. Also here, just quickly want to shout out Maglaj, War and Peace, which is a really fascinating documentary about three soldiers who fought in the Bosnian conflict on three different sides, who've come together, and who've since reconciled and come together 20 to 30 years later, and all of their conversations are really dominated by just wondering why they even fought the war in the first place. And the dynamic between these soldiers actually serves to influence the dynamic between the characters in our game. And of course, when you are doing a project that seeks to emulate a place and seeks to uplift its memories and its stories, you absolutely have to involve the people who are there and the people who have lived those memories and who share these stories. So we truly would not be in this project without our colleagues and consultants from Kosovo. A special shout out to Hanakaya, who is a student from RIT Kosovo, who's done lots of research with Marcia during her time in Kosovo and was here in Rochester this past summer, helping to plan our brainstorming workshops that we held before development began. You can see on the right there some students from RIT Kosovo who are also here, an instrumental part of our brainstorming workshops. And Hana, who continues to advise on our game all the way from Kosovo and is helping us to assemble a team of playtesters over there. So Hana, if you're watching this, you're awesome. Thank you very much. Also, Gwen Olton and Katie Thomas from the M.K. Gandhi Institute, who came and facilitated our first two workshops and helped to plan them as well, and helped to keep nonviolence and peace building at the core of our game's philosophy from day one, which was incredibly helpful. So let's get into the actual interactive fiction of it all. How are we using that for empathy building? What are we considering when we think about empathy building? And it starts right at the beginning, right? Creating a safe space for empathy building through an immersive, interactive experience. Here we go. By making an interactive video game, we create an immersive experience, which is ideal for empathy building. We want our players to be able to reflect on their choices and live in an experience that either they don't experience regularly for a player base not from a post-conflict zone, or one they are familiar with, but where they can make different choices than they would normally. This is crucial. We're really considering our audience from the post-conflict from the post-conflict zones and thinking about how our game can be used as a peace-building tool there, and being able to provide a safe space where we can make different choices than the ones that we normally would in our lives is crucial to that mission. And all the research points to this. If there are any theory heads in the audience, come find me afterwards. I'd love to talk about the theory with you. Here you can see our world building timeline and some flag and logo concepts. We're really trying our hardest to make this world as rich and diverse and lived in as possible to really facilitate that immersion and to really help the player be grounded in this experience and really to see themselves in this place, in this Peaceland. And we're doing so really carefully, which brings me to my next slide. Building a world that addresses sensitive issues without triggering. It is crucial that our world reflects the themes, memories, and choices that people living in post-conflict zones experience in their daily lives. But it is also crucial that we don't accidentally trigger our audience. We want this to be a safe space. We don't want to turn away a large portion of our audience immediately by making this game too realistic. There have been a lot of really interesting presentations about this weekend about where that line is with realism and immersion. Our world is entirely fictional. All of our place names, our peoples and events, etc. are entirely fictional. It takes place about 20 to 30 years in the future of our current technological status. So there's some mild science fiction elements in there as well. Again, to put distance, just a little bit of distance between our primary world, the world we experience, and the world of our game. The world's meta-narrative still, though, resembles that of Kosovo's. And that's really important because the Balkans for so long has served as a microcosm of post-conflict zones around the world, making sure that our meta-narrative still resembles that of Kosovo's without being too realistic and too triggering is very important. We've even taken this into account when modeling our characters. You can see some of our phenomenal concept art for our character modeling. Notice that it's very much not, it's humanoid, but they're very much not human. And we're experimenting with a lot of malachite patterning to show emotion and to show detail and to give information to the player. Again, really just trying to put space between the primary world and the world of our game while still keeping all of our themes in line with the real lived themes. Moving on, the actual nuts and bolts of the gameplay. Tasking our players to roleplay as characters from fictitious countries 20 to 30 years after a conflict ends. I'm of the belief that roleplay is a form of empathy. It's quite literally the phrase, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. We challenge our players to see themselves in this game, regardless of where you're coming from, regardless of your experiences. We challenge you to see yourself in this game, and we ask what you would do if you found yourself in this kind of situation. When you find yourselves in tense moments, interacting with people and you don't know if they're on the other side and what it means to be on the other side, and to try and still understand and build empathy is a really crucial part of our game. Also crucial is showing our player multiple perspectives with limited information to find a shared narrative. This is key to our goal, because we want to make sure that you as the player, when you go into a memory, can connect with these characters without immediately running into something that discounts you being able to connect with that character. Because that's so often how conversations in the primary world go. We want to make sure that you can meet the person that you are playing as and the people around you. And we want to make sure that you can connect and build relationship with them as people before you learn this information, such that those relationships that you built are really put to the test. And your empathy building and your understanding of others is really put to the test when you do learn that information. It's also important that we include all perspectives, not just the perspectives of the two primary antagonistic sides, but of the many third-party peoples, the third-party organizations that were present there as well. They are a very important part of the story and a very important part of finding that shared narrative, which is really crucial not only for our player in the game, but also for peace building as a whole. And finally, perhaps the meat and potatoes of all interactive fiction, player agency and confronting our players with the consequences of their choices. Behold the almighty dialogue tree. We've spent a lot a lot of time thinking about what kinds of choices do we want to give our player and what are the results of those choices. Because we know our game can't work without player agency. We know it can't work without involvement and investment and immersion from the player. And moreover than that, this is how the player can move the world through their actions closer or farther away from Peaceland by making these small choices, as Marcia said in the beginning. Progress is not linear, and it's our hope that the player is involved in showing that. There's some really interesting graphs about peace building and the peace building process, and it is not a 45-degree angle. It goes up and down and up and down. So involving the player in that choice and in that process really starts to bring us into what it's like to try and build peace in places like this. And nonlinear storytelling, of course, something that we are all familiar with at this at an interactive fiction conference, but so crucial in delivering the information in the way that we want to deliver it in this kind of a game, because we have the player playing as a journalist in 30 years in the future. We also have the player bouncing back and forth between memories that happen around the time of the conflict and after the conflict. Because we present the player with this information in different ways, at different times, we should say, we maximize the impact by moving between times non-linearly, revealing information only as necessary, and really emulating the act of discovery. Observing what a place is like at this moment in time, going back in time, observing what this place was like from one perspective at that point in time, and then kind of trying to assemble a jigsaw puzzle in the now while also experiencing the consequences of before in the now. To talk more in depth about this, I will finish today by talking about the story of our first memory, the first memory that we're working on in our co-op at RIT, at Magic. And here's the general gist. I mentioned the dog. Look at how cute he is. Yeah, this photo over here, this early build, is very much an early build, literally as of this past Thursday. We got to play an early build, and then you can see the accompanying concept art as well. In our first memory, you play as a 10-year-old child from the city of Paxterra. And when you come into the memory, you do not know which side of the river that you are on. Our city of Paxterra is segregated along by the river, just like the city of Mitrovica in Kosovo. One evening, as you're out getting ice cream, you hear some strange barking coming from the Peace Park at the center of our bridge. And when you go to investigate, you actually end up meeting two kids and a dog. So you as the player, as a 10-year-old, meet two other kids, one who was there taking care of the dog previously, and another one who comes along later. And even in as perhaps minute of an interaction as we with the American mindset would think about, two kids meeting a dog, this kind of interaction is a hugely, hugely important interaction, and one that is very reminiscent of places like Kosovo and post-war countries. They have a big stray dog problem, for one, as well as everywhere in the Balkans. So we're exploring those themes as well. But the kinds of decisions that you make, if you pet the dog or back away, are you friendly or cautious to the other kids? Even things that we would normally think of, like what language do you speak in? The language choice is a really key and crucial choice. And when nearby peacekeeping soldiers come around, how do you respond to their presence? Those kinds of choices, even in a first interaction, are really critical, really crucial, and really important. And those are the kinds of choices that have the short-term and long-term effects. Later on in this memory, apologies, it's going to get a little dark, you're caught out in the middle of a riot. And when you run into this dog and the other two kids, initially not knowing what the other's ethnicities are, this is the moment where you do learn what their ethnicities are. And sorry for the spoilers, they are on opposite sides to you. And in that moment, it is made very aware to the player that if the dog stays in this park, the dog will face imminent doom. So the question becomes, where does the dog go? What side of the river does the dog go to? And do you go with the dog? And depending on those choices that you make there, it not only has consequences for how that immediate memory ends, but it absolutely has consequences for the world of the journalist 30 years later, who, remember, is seeing these memories and seeing these perspectives and trying to piece together a shared narrative. The difference in how you play this memory determines whether or not an extra dog shelter exists in modern day Pax Terra, determines actually how many of these characters you get to meet as the journalist all grown up once you complete this memory. And it certainly determines how the individuals in this memory, how they interpret this memory, and how their psyches and their responses to what's going on in the present day of the journalist, what the choices that you make there matter to that very much as well. And those are all things that will help the player in their ultimate goal of moving towards Peaceland or back towards conflict. To conclude a little bit, we are still early in our journey, very early. We're still trying to really figure out what Peaceland means. But we've known from the beginning that interactive fiction was the only way we could tell this story in the way we want to tell it. Our whole team is passionate about games and storytelling, and we all believe, at the end of the day, that Peaceland can and will make a difference in the world. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Marcia and Kristana on stage, and we'll use the 4 minutes we have left for Q&A, if there are any questions. Yes, in the back.
It was intentionally done that way because it is that we do recognize that it is really relevant. I particularly recognize its relevance to all of these conflicts, but I chose this time and space in the Balkans as representative of all of those. So it's meant to follow that model, but a border dispute across the river, segregated populations, complexities behind that, choices made, will be really familiar to all of the players. So that was a conscious choice rather than making it just a universal place. Better or worse.
Yes. It's a great. Oh.
All right, language is another issue. The safe language in the Balkans right now is English. Because you can't always tell the ethnicity of a person who and which side of the conflict they were on. And we heard constant stories about both Serbs and Albanian Kosovars, all from Kosovo, and other groups who are speaking one language or another. So if a Serb is going into an area they're not familiar with, for instance, I heard this story, they would often speak English and sort of test the waters and then decide whether or not it was safe to speak Serbian. Almost everyone understands and speaks English, and we did talk about translating it. That's a possibility later on, but to begin with, I do know that English will be clearly understood by players. Also, we could use caption translation tools.
Yes, absolutely. Jai over here is a part of our development team. Go ahead. Thank you for that question. Any others? Probably have time for one more. Fantastic. If you have more questions, the three of us will be around the conference the rest of the day. If you're curious to see more, check out peaceland-game.com. The website's still under construction. We will be adding to it in the coming weeks. And please, please, please feel free to email any of us if you want to talk about this game any further. Thank you so much to NarraScope and the IFTF for hosting us, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.